The views and opinions expressed by the following program are those of the host, guests, and callers and are not necessarily those of this station or Webster Rock Hill Ministries, its management, or other hosts or underwriting sponsors. Programs presented by KWRH-LP are for educational and entertainment purposes only.
Welcome back to In Tune. This is Arnold Stricker. We're going on our second hour, and in studio we have Clint McCann, who is the professor of biblical interpretation, evangelical professor of biblical interpretation at Eden Seminary. He has degrees from Davidson College, Union Theological Seminary, and Duke University, and he is in studio to talk about the Crop Hunger Walk, and we may diverge on a couple other topics as we kind of go through our conversation here, Clint, but that's okay.
That would be fine, Arnold, yes.
And I always tell people that when we have guests in studio, we're sitting down like we're having a conversation in the living room. So it's very relaxed. Actually, we have a whole lot of good time. You don't necessarily see what happens off air, but we do have fun. So his research and writing actually have focused on the Psalms, and he's a noted biblical scholar, serves as the chair of Psalms section of the Society of Biblical Literature for 10 years. He frequently teaches beyond the Eden campus and has done some work as a resident minister of the New Piazza, Chautauqua.
New Piasa,
Chautauqua, near Elsa, Illinois. And he kind of puts his money where his mouth is. He's done some multicultural education, led some groups to Guatemala and Costa Rica, and is increasing his proficiency in Espanol.
Sí.
De nada.
¿Habla español, sí?
I would say un peu, but that's French.
Un poco.
Un poco. There we go.
Más o menos. Sí.
I get my languages confused. Tell us a little bit, Clint, about the Crop Hunger Walk. And there's and the reason we're talking about this is because that's coming up
soon in our community. It's,
right. Matter of fact, I want to give folks the date, and then we're going to talk around that.
Okay.
It's
Sunday, October the 7th.
There you go.
Sunday, October the 7th, 4:30 in the afternoon on the campus of Eden Theological Seminary, which is in Webster Groves. Check in at 4:30. The actual walk at 5, and their 1 mile and a 3 mile route will be laid out depending on how far you want to walk. And then following that, at 7 p.m., there's a musical concert that has to do with the Psalms that you had mentioned earlier. It's free, but there will be opportunities there to collect canned or boxed food, and also to contribute financially to Crop Church World Service. And if you stay and walk and want to stay for the concert, the Holy Crepe food truck will be on site.
I saw that.
So
that was like...
isn't that appropriate for a seminary? Holy crepe. They have dessert crepes. They have savory crepes, so you can have a snack, you can have a meal, and just make an afternoon and evening of it.
So what's the... tell us a little bit about the Crop Hunger Walk. What, for those people who may not be aware of it, what are the origins of the Crop Hunger Walk, and what is the purpose of it?
Well, CROP is a wing of Church World Service, which is an alliance of 37 Protestant and Orthodox denominations or communions. Church World Service was formed in 1946 in the aftermath of World War II. Where there were many needs, especially in Europe and those areas affected directly by the war. So Church World Service was formed as a ministry outreach kind of organization, ecumenical cooperation involved. There more denominations have come on since 1946. But anyway, CROP developed in 1969, was the first crop walk. It's been called the granddaddy of all the walks. Now there are tons of walks. You can find 6 or 8 walks every weekend. But CROP actually had a reason for walking other than raising money. If you walk for CROP, the idea is you're walking in solidarity with people around the world who every day actually have to walk in order to get food and clean water. We do raise money in the process to support Church World Services outreach in addressing hunger and poverty. But CROP is their way. Originally, it stood for the Christian Rural Overseas Program and was designed to help farmers in the United States get their wheat and other goods to areas of the world that needed it. The Church World Service no longer uses that as an acronym. It's just CROP. But the purpose has remained the same since 1969, to raise money to support the ministry and outreach of Church World Service. Let me just give you briefly the mission statement of Church World Service, and we can go from there. I think I've got it exactly memorized, but if not, this is pretty close to an exact quote. Church World Service is a faith-based organization transforming communities around the globe through just and sustainable responses to hunger, poverty, displacement, and disaster. So they help people in need, in other words.
A lot of different things: feeding the hungry, clothing the naked, healing the sick, comforting the ages, sheltering the homeless.
That's right.
Things that we have here in our country.
Absolutely.
But we don't really realize how well we have it here in our country until you've seen some of the situations worldwide.
Well, as you know, there's poverty throughout the United States, including Webster Groves. A lot of folks in Webster Groves, which is generally considered, and rightfully so, affluent community. 14% of the children in Webster Groves qualify for federal nutrition assistance in the public schools. So there's hunger and poverty right here among us. We're in the basement of a building, the upper part of which is Webster Rock Hill Ministries, which is aware of the need and is committed to addressing issues of impoverishment, hunger, need, and more. But in a sense, in a real sense, poverty throughout the world is different than it is in the United States. One of the most profound experiences of my life was walking across the International Bridge from Eagle Pass, Texas, into Piedras Negras, Mexico. And my two older daughters at the time were teenagers. And I mean, they were just overwhelmed to see the difference in crossing the Rio Grande or the Rio Bravo River. The poverty just smacked us in the face. And I've traveled extensively in Latin America, as you mentioned, Guatemala, more recently in El Salvador, and even in Cuba. And the poverty is just pervasive, and it's a way of life. We have poverty rates here that run 16 to 18 to 20%, depending on how you count them. But in places throughout Latin America, Asia, and Africa as well, the rates are 40, 50%. At any given time, the estimate among experts is that close to 1 billion people live on less than $2 a day.
Wow.
Now, $2 a day goes a lot further in some places than it does
Right.
in Webster Groves, of course. But still, that means close to 15 to 20% of the world population lives with the daily reality of either hunger or malnutrition or food deprivation.
We probably waste more than many countries utilize on a regular basis.
We do. The estimates of how much food we waste in the United States are just appalling. Some would suggest close to 40% of the food produced in the United States is wasted in homes, but also the way we police our grocery stores and restaurants and so on. Obviously, they need regulation for food safety regulation, but a lot of those regulations prohibit the use of food that is still good and nutritious and could be eaten.
I know a lot of the restaurants in our area have gathered together to, when they have food that has not been consumed, that is still,
Right.
They take that down to like St. Patrick's
Right,
Center or
yes.
another agency like that.
And
too.
that is helpful, right? And other countries, too, are leading. France has different regulations on food, the dating of it. Is it really harmful when the sale date has been reached and so on? If so, what do you do with it? Do you have to throw it away? A lot of it is thrown away, but not necessarily.
It's like trying to buy day-old bread at the day-old bread store,
right.
you know?
Right, it's still good.
Right. Otherwise, they wouldn't be selling it.
Exactly.
No, Church World Services has done a lot as I've gone back and looked at this. There was a crop hunger walk in 1969 in Bismarck, North Dakota. in which was kind of the start of the hunger
That was
walks.
the first one. That's right.
Right. Raised $25,000 to help stop hunger. York County, Pennsylvania, the first walk officially called the Crop Walk for the Hungry.
About a year later or so in 1970, right?
So more than 1,000 communities take place, or participate and take part in this. More than 5 million crop hunger walkers have participated in more than 36,000 crop hunger walks in the last 2 decades alone.
Right.
So it's not something that is, like you said, you see a lot of walks. You see a lot of, we're doing this for this.
For
we're
all
doing this.
kinds of purposes, right?
Exactly.
And good purposes.
Yes, an annual event. This is an annual event.
This is an annual event. It varies. The date varies from community to community, but it really is, in a fundamental way, a nationwide event, because crop walks happen everywhere. And even though we may have ours on October the 7th and somebody else may be October the 14th and so on, and some are in the spring, in a real sense, we're walking together for the same purpose.
So people can just walk to walk, or they can walk and be sponsored?
The idea is that when you walk, you get sponsorship. It used to be sponsorship by the mile. And back when I started walking for crop in the late 1970s and early 1980s in North Carolina, which, by the way, has some of the largest crop walks in the United States. You walked 10 miles and you got a sponsor per mile. Now the idea is you just walk and try to get anybody to donate to sponsor your concern as well as your walk. So like many other things, Crop has gone to online fundraising. You can register for the local crop walk at a local website that is set up by Crop Church World Service at the national level. And once you're registered online, you can tell other people to go to that same site, click the donate button, type in your name, and then choose an amount and put in their credit card. So you raise money online. We still do it the old-fashioned way. There's still print hard copy sponsor envelopes available from me at Eden Seminary if you want them, so that you can collect cash and checks made out to CWS, Church World Service /crop. So the money raising happens in a variety of ways, but it all goes to the same place.
Okay, so I'm going to ask the big question, Clint.
Right.
Follow the money. Where does the money go? How does it get utilized? Because some people are aware, well, I don't want it going to pay somebody's salary. I really want it to go to the places that really need the assistance.
Well, Crop Church World Service has the top charity type ratings, that is low overhead, the preponderance of the money going to people who actually need help, and that's the case with the local walk as well as all the crop walks. Church World Service is active in 35 countries throughout the world, including direct, what we would call charity, direct assistance, giving people food, but more frequently development assistance. The idea, the old thing about don't just give somebody a fish, but teach them to fish.
Right.
Well, that's the philosophy of Church World Service, is development assistance. So seeds and tools and starter animals. Other organizations do this too, like Heifer International.
Right, I was going to say very similar to Heifer.
Oxfam, yeah, very similar to Heifer's philosophy and practice. Heifer, of course, and Church World Service would be on board with this too, sharing the gift. That is developing within a community sustainable practices in agriculture, cattle raising, animal husbandry, tilapia ponds in some places. So they do that. They're active in Latin America, for instance. There's a program administered by Church World Service in cooperation with other agencies that educates and attempts to strengthen and facilitate opportunities for children who have incarcerated parents. And that's frequent throughout Latin America, and increasingly so, of course, in the United States. One of the big things that Church World Service does, and Crop helps to fund this, is refugee resettlement. Church World Service is one of the 9 agencies or organizations recognized by the United States government to assist in the resettlement of refugees. that's happening, to my mind. It's going to be happening, unfortunately, less frequently because of our immigration policies right now. But that's one of the outreach directions of Church World Service. In Haiti, since the earthquake there several years ago, the focus has been on building and rebuilding houses. So it depends on the area of the world, but whether it's Latin America or Asia or the Caribbean, there are actually some programs in Europe among for instance, the Roma people in Serbia who struggle to survive, to have stable incomes, homes, that sort of thing. So it's a varied approach, but essentially, as you suggested a while ago, it's about feeding the hungry, clothing those, helping folks find shelter, clean water, wells and water programs are frequent in various parts of the world.
So is this, when the funds are received and they're administered directly from the CWS,
Right.
overseas, or they go to another group where they're distributed, or does CWS have, like, they reach right down and it's like a one-on-one kind of thing, so it's not like an intermediary or many intermediary
CWS
steps?
Has staff throughout the world, so they administer their funds. They always work in cooperation with with government, governmental agencies in the various countries, but also with NGOs. As I said, part of the, as you heard it reflected in their mission statement, part of it is responses to disaster. And CWS, although it works internationally, also works within the United States. So right now, CWS is distributing hygiene kits, cleanup buckets, blankets, to those who've been displaced by Hurricane Florence, particularly in North Carolina, but parts of South Carolina as well, but especially North Carolina. Actually, there was an email I got 2 days ago from Mary Catherine Hines, who's a Church World Service crop staff person based in Raleigh, North Carolina. And her email had dealt with her leaving her home during the worst of the raining and hurricane when Florence hit, and returning safely and so on, but pointing out that folks just east of her were not able to return home yet.
Wow.
Some of them won't be for weeks or months.
Wow.
Because the Cape Fear River and the Lumber River and the Pee Dee River and the Waccamaw River and the Neuse River have just flooded beyond any imagining. So within the past 2 years, Lumberton, North Carolina, for instance, has had two 2,000-year floods in the past 2 years.
Wow.
With Interstate 95 being closed through Lumberton. And
That's crazy.
And Church World Service does that kind of disaster assistance too. Now, that's not directly feeding the hungry or development assistance, but people who can't live in their homes and can't get to their jobs need food at that point.
But there's another example, folks, listening audience, of how a group helps individuals within their own community.
Right.
We hear how individuals or groups within our community help, and we're not relying on government to do everything for us. They can't do everything for us. No. Faith-based groups have done a tremendous amount of things within the local community and nationally, especially in disaster kinds of situations.
Right. And for the crop walk, any individual crop walk, and we do that here, 25% of the funds, up to 25% of the funds, and that's our figure, stay within the local community. So designated beneficiaries in our local community include Webster Rock Hill Ministries, which is a faith-based ecumenical organization, Circle of Concern, and Operation Food Search, which is one of the two large food banks, really, that resource food pantries and all throughout the area. So the funds raised stay right here within Webster Groves, as well as in the larger metro area.
Interesting. We're talking to Dr. Clint McCann, who's from Eden Seminary. He's also been specifically talking to us about the 2018 Crop Hunger Walk, which will be held at Eden Seminary on the 7th of October from 4:30 to 7 p.m. The walk takes place at 5 o'clock, and there is a concert at 7 o'clock. And as he mentioned, there's a dinner from the Holy Crepe food truck which will be on site there from 4 o'clock to 7 o'clock. There's also a concert that will take place at the Worley Chapel, and it will feature a variety of professionally, nationally, and internationally known composers and performers. So this is just not a walk event.
No, it's more than a walk event. It brings together two of my passions, which CWS is faith motivated, and I too. You don't have to be faith motivated in order to be a humanitarian in your sensibilities. But my humanitarian sensibilities are grounded in a faith commitment as well. So this event really brings together two of my passions: feeding the hungry, which is at the heart of what I understand faith to be, and the Psalms, which has been my academic career.
Matter of fact,
so it's more than a walk. Yeah,
it's more than a walk, and you've done a lot with the Psalms, as we kind of talked prior to you coming on air, and you mentioned that a Psalm that you're really working on right now is Psalm 82.
Psalm 82, yeah, which is probably, some Psalms, well, at least one Psalm people will know by number, Psalm 23,
right?
And maybe a couple others, Psalm 121 or Psalm 100 or something like that, depending on one's background. Nobody knows what Psalm 82 is if you just say the number, but as I told you beforehand, Arnold, Psalm 82 has recently been identified by a well-known New Testament scholar, of all things, as the single most important text in the entire Christian Bible. And what that psalm does, it tells a story. It tells a story about the God of Israel disrupting a meeting of the Canaanite gods and accusing them of malpractice. And their failure had to do, not because they were other or different or non-Israelite. Their failure was precisely the failure to attend to and provide for the poor, the weak, and the needy. In other words, their failure was to feed people. So they are dismissed. And the psalm closes with a prayer. Most psalms are prayers throughout, or many psalms are prayers from the beginning. This is only one line is a prayer. It's "Arise, O God, establish justice on earth." Justice meaning setting things right. For all the nations belong to you. See, that's a biblical perspective we often miss, or the church and sometimes the synagogue have often missed, that the whole world belongs to God.
Right.
The scope of God's concern is not just for Jews, not just for Christians, certainly not just for citizens of the United States. All the nations belong to you. That's a big job.
It is. And throughout the scriptures, it's mentioned about taking care of those who are less fortunate, taking care of the widow and the orphan.
Absolutely.
And treating them justly and not having differing measures.
Well, widow and orphan became a kind of word pair to symbolize those who are the most needy and the most vulnerable. Often a third element was included: widow, orphan, and the older translations were alien or resident alien. The more recent translations, widow, orphan, and immigrant, which really gives it a kind of an edge.
Gives it a different viewpoint.
A different sound, particularly amid the ongoing debates on immigration policy right now in the United States and in the United Nations and so on. Yeah.
So if folks want to participate, Clint, in the Crop Hunger Walk, what should they do?
Well, you can just show up on October the 7th at Eden Seminary, and you can register on site, but Church World Service and Crop actually encourage online registration, so you can go to www.crophungerwalk, all small letters, all run together, www.crophungerwalk.org/St. Louis Mo, with Saint written out, SAINTLOUISMO, and you can register there. You can solicit online donations there. You can create a team for your church or business or organization there, and so on. So, or you can just show up on Sunday the 7th.
Show up at Eden Seminary.
At Eden Seminary. Right.
And the walk time is 5 o'clock, registration 4:30.
Right.
The distances are 1 and 3 miles.
1 and 3 miles. Or if you just want to walk around the quadrangle, we'll let you do that too.
There's food there. There'll be a concert there. Great time. We encourage you to attend, folks. And for more information, again, it's www.crophungerwalk.org. Right. And you can punch in St. Louis, and you'll get right to the website. I'm on that right now, and I can see Clint's name and everything. All the whole thing's listed right here. So, Clint, thanks very much for coming in today.
Thank you, Arnold.
And talking about that.
Glad to do that, and I appreciate your having me.
Folks, don't forget Crop Hunger Walks helps support the overall work of the Church World Service, particularly grassroots developments around the world. And 25%, as Clint said, they remain in our own community area. So they provide food and water, resources to help empower people meet their own needs, seeds and tools, wells and water systems, a variety of things. A great service. This is Arnold Stricker of In Tune. You're listening to KWRHLP 92.9 FM, your community radio station in Webster Groves, Missouri. Stay tuned.